Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome back to the Gotham Streets for another Batman 3rd Edition game report. A rather special one today. There have been some rather startling developments at the time of recording in the recent past because Night Models has just revealed a large amount of new decks for the game and a lovely new deck box, which I will be covering as soon as it comes through in a quick critique. And yes, of course, that means they've uploaded a whole bunch of decks to their online Dropbox, of which I've printed a couple of those out. And today I'll be focusing in on a battle between the League of Assassins and the Kobra Cult. One of the Colts deck being one of the new ones to come out, so I wanted to try it out. And these two factions have a bit of beef between them. League of Shadows in its guise as Leviathan, headed by Talia al Ghul, stealing followers and resources from the Kobra Cult, who rely on disaffected people to swell their ranks. And yes, that's exactly what Leviathan did as well, the organisation. So yes, there we go. I'll be showing you the crews in just a moment, but first don't forget to check out the description below for a 10% discount to the Top Hatted Hamster web store, where you can get that little discount off your first or next order. Okay, let's press on and I'll show you who's playing what. Well, let's start with the brand new one, shall we? Freshly painted off the presses for me today. This is the 350 odd point reputation crew that I'm using for the Kobra Cult this time. Hasn't got all their models in it by any means. They've despite being a relatively new edition, they were not unblessed with models, and so let's take you through them now. Leading the crew up is the sidekick. This time I didn't take what's his name? King Kobra? I can't remember. Jeffrey is his name, which is awesome. It could be worse. It could have been Nigel, I suppose. But yeah, he's not in this one though. This is Lady Eve, the sidekick. She's pretty hardcore. She's a good solid 4/4 attack and defense type for a sidekick. She has that quite brutal Cobra sword. She's definitely not a Deathstroke or anything like that, but she can hold her own in combat herself. And she comes with some interesting leading abilities. She has the Void Priest rule for the traits and everything to help synergize with the deck of cards, which I'll cover as we go along. As a free agent, we're taking Raptor, the new guy, because I haven't taken him yet and I really want to see what he can do. Comes with that useful grapple gun, so a bit more mobility, and the portable curtain's a good laugh. The henchmen in the crew are a mixture of these guys who are kind of like Dr. Evil's henchmen. They're generally a bit rubbish, but fair. The best way to distinguish between the henchmen in this crew really is by what weapons they're carrying, to be perfectly honest, rather than they do have some sort of oddball different traits and things, much like the henchmen in other crews, but generally speaking they're all kind of standard fare, whether they're these guys or the Naga at the end here. Even the lizard guy at the back is just a close combat specialist, really, when you get down to it. It's quite fast and everything, but and the two hazard troopers in their really awesome hazard armor. There's not much really to tell between the henchmen, except a few points here and there of stamina, of endurance or willpower or what have you. But the weaponry is what differentiates them. So you got lots of guns in this crew, a few blades, mostly blood damage, which is quite threatening and really cool. And of course this guy here with the flamethrower is a good laugh too, and that's basically what differentiates them for the purposes of this game. Until I get really used to the crew, that's how I'll be thinking of them, certainly. And of course, trying to score points. Now the interesting thing about the Colts deck is that it seems to be split between generic cults and ones which are specific to the Kobra Cult as well. So that sort of implies that there'll be other cults coming in, maybe Deacon Blackfire, maybe even the Religion of Crime, if they want to get really detailed and go into Batwoman antagonists as well. That'd be interesting, because I like the Religion of Crime myself. Very cool. But yes, never mind, let's carry on with this game in hand. You'll see how the deck works, but the main thing to bear in mind is that this crew does not really generate resource points as such. It has to generate faith, is how it uses the resources on its own specific cards, and that's what we'll be seeing today. And yes, so the faith is generated by putting suspects down within 8 inches of Lady Eve here. She generates one herself, a point of faith, and also I believe, yes, they clarified it on the Discord that Kobra Cult generates a point of faith every time an attack hits an enemy. So yeah, that's how they'll be proceeding with their resources for their cards to cycle their deck. And yeah, you'll see how the cards score as the game goes on, I'm sure. I need to push on now, and let's have a look at the League of Assassins for today. And here they are, yes, the League of Assassins, this time headed up by Talia al Ghul herself, head of Leviathan. And yes, Kobra Cult's pretty much chief detractor by this point. I think they were feeling the bite because of Leviathan's push on their resources, I think, at one point. In the new 52 arc, I think. I might be wrong. Don't bother correcting me, I don't care. She's joined by the clone of her son, Damian Wayne. This is the Heretic, a much larger clone. This is, I think she went for full-grown version when she made this guy. And he's a good old beat stick, pretty handy guy. Should be good at chopping up the relative hordes of Kobra cultists he'll be coming up against. We're going with the rest of the bat box in terms of henchmen as well. So you got all the assassins here. I wanted to keep both of this confrontation, I didn't say this in the Kobra Cult intro, to bat boxes really, plus one blister. So in the Kobra Cult you've got the contents of the bat box, and the Hazard Troopers blister and Raptor, so relatively easy to collect if you wanted to go that way. In this one we're going with the bat box with Talia al Ghul in and her assassins. The Heretic is all in one bat box, plus Cheshire, I think, yes. But we're also going with the generic, what they're called, the convicts, the Blackgate prisoners sets. They usually do a set of this for each edition of the game, just to give all the crews, barring Batman of course, a few more generic henchmen to choose from. And these guys I haven't used yet, despite the fact I've owned them for quite a long time and used them in like friendly games and whatnot. But I thought it was time to break them out for the for the channel, and they're quite useful. They're handy. This guy at the front here with the gun is particularly useful. Puts out their fire. That's a good carbine, high rate of fire, and they're handy guys to have along. These guys representing recently released convicts who Leviathan are in the process of indoctrinating. Not actually released, broken out convicts who are being indoctrinated by Leviathan, who the Kobra Cult would have taken on if they got to them first. I think Kobra is meant to recruit quite heavily from the US pre-penal system, fresh prime breeding recruiting grounds for Leviathan too, I'm sure. Okay, let's get on. Yes, these guys are all basically variations of stabby and move around in the shadows, and these guys provide a little bit of firepower and just a little bit of muscle at the back there as well. So good bit of variation. We'll see how it goes. In both crews weighing in at quite high model counts at 9 figures apiece. Haven't gone that large yet. Might make this game a little bit longer for the filming, but I do get people saying you should play with big crews sometimes just to show how they work. So here you go, you get your wish. We'll see. They're not particularly tough models, so I'm sure some of them will be the herd will be thinned out a bit as we go. Okay, let's get on and deploy. Okay, deployment now complete. Just to let you guys know, we've drawn plunder from the deck of deployment cards. As you can see, it's both sides crammed into two corners facing off against each other pretty much, but with this extra little bit of text here just basically saying that each side gets two suspect markers to put out on the board before things get rolling. And I've just show you where I put mine. The League of Assassins have put theirs more or less in the middle of the boards. Meanwhile, the Kobra Cult have popped theirs and the back corners in the League of Assassins deployment zone, both sides for reasons best known to themselves. So let's move on to the actual placement of models, and we'll start with the League of Assassins. We've got Heretic and one of the prisoners, Carlo Grotti, I think his name is. I think he's ex-mafioso, or maybe current mafioso, but they're both on this side, bringing up the left flank for the League there. In terms, most of the rest of the models are actually clustered in the middle of the board around Talia al Ghul. Both sides fielding quite a lot of models, so having to use the inspiration trait quite a lot. So I'm assuming that Talia here will be responsible for a lot of the suspect putting out over the first couple of turns at least, I suppose. So that's just so that's some of her close combat henchmen accompanying her on this side of the board. Up on the roof of the Star Store, we've got two more. We've got Gustav Gustafsson at the front here with his carbine. He has been given shadow training from purchasable war gear, so he could deploy a bit further forwards, and so he's gone to the edge of the building. And this Assassin 4, actually has has Scout on his profile, which enables him to move once before the game begins properly, and he's just used that to deploy up on the roof here, and then he's moved forwards to the edge. He also has from purchasable war gear a grapple gun and combat bracers, but the grapple gun will help him to remain not being a splot on the pavement when he comes down. Okay, right, and finally the last assassin is here. He has been given trained in the shadows as a piece of purchasable war gear. Gives him the hidden deployment. He was able to deploy out of sight behind the truck, sneaking around. Right, moving back to the Kobra Cult, we're going to go with showing you all the guys in the park first. That's Lady Eve and a whole bunch of henchmen. Henchmen being their leader is really important for cults. As I said earlier, it helps with the faith counters. Also, she gets to use them as bodyguards a bit as well. That's a cult rule rather than just a Kobra rule. So there they are. You got the Naga, one of the hazard troopers, and two of the random chodders next to a sewer marker and a lamppost, which probably won't be lasting too long when the game gets going. We've also got over here the hybrid, the hazard trooper with a machine gun, and the other basic guy with carbine in over here. Hopefully they'll be able to provide a bit of fire support and some moving up in the more open area of the board, and to spread the combat a little bit. And finally, Raptor on the rooftops, able to use his back claw and extra mobility to swoop down as the game progresses. Okay, well, that concludes deployment. I think it's time to start moving, don't you? Okay, first two phases now complete for the first turn. Let's see what started this thing off, shall we? Yes, in the first phase there was no objective cards played by either side, but the Kobra Cult in blue there managed to get the initiative, as you can see. In the second phase, 2 cards played by the Kobra Cult. So let's see what the first of these cult cards that come out for me are. First of all is Ritual for 3 points. It's played now, scores at the end of the turn, have a friendly suspect within 6 inches of 3 other friendly suspects. When scored, remove 2 of those suspects. So yeah, a bit wordy. Basically need to have 4 suspect markers in close proximity to each other, so it's a bit of an ask, but worth getting out there. If nothing else, it gets the card out and gets them looking around, and plenty of guys around here to put down suspects, hopefully in closer proximity to each other than they need to be. Second card was The Great Plan, another 3-pointer, played now and scored at the end of the turn. As you can see, there were more friendly suspects than enemy suspects within 8 inches of the corners of the gaming area. So yes, that explains why the Kobra Cult put their suspect markers back here on top of buildings. Yes, so obviously they have just announced that is their intention though, and for 3 points that might cause some rapid manoeuvring from the League of Assassins down here. So I guess we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, nonetheless, a nice 2 hefty scoring 3-pointers for the Cult. The League of Assassins have no cards to play. Most of their cards tend to come out at the end part of the turn rather than the beginning. So I wouldn't read too much into this so far. Also in the Razor Plan phase, Talia Gorget has Scheming 3, allows her to move some suspect markers. She moved her 2 suspect markers already in play a bit closer together for obviously some plan of hers. She also decided to move this suspect marker up here away from the direct corner towards the middle, make it a bit easier for her henchmen to get at. Right, let's see who's got Audacity. On the Cult side, you've got this minion here with the sword, and Lady Eve herself has Audacity. Over here, the Hazard Trooper with a machine gun has Audacity, and Raptor up on the rooftop has Audacity. So they'll be getting nice full turns activations this turn. On the League of Assassins, the Geezer Assassin up here on the roof with the big 2-handed bouge, he's got Audacity. Also, what's his name? The Heretic has Audacity. Talia herself has Audacity, so she gets all her actions, and the assassin who infiltrated down by the lorry also has Audacity for the turn. Okay, let's get started moving around, and yeah, we'll see who gets to activate first. Oh, it's the Cult activating first. We'll see who's going to go first for them. Well, kicking things off, Lancehead Soldier, that's his name, activated, and he had Audacity. He was just back next to the sewer and the lamppost, which is not there anymore. He used his sword to cut it down. It's a very sharp sword, very sharp. So yes, they're no longer illuminated over here, which is good for the Cult of Kobra. They're very glad they got to go first before being cast into bright lights as the enemy started their turn. Yeah, he moved forwards. He still had his or inspiration-based or manipulate action, so he popped down a suspect marker. Because that's within 8 inches of Lady Eve, that's another faith point for the Kobra cult. That gives them 2 so far. Lady Eve generates 1 per turn in the raise the plan phase, and his one there just makes a second. So they've got 2 faith points left to spend. The next thing that happened was he used his Kobra armor, which is a trait on his card, he took 1 effort to gain a defense token. Kind of worth it. I mean, this effort will probably disappear by the end of the turn when in the recovery phase, so he's gaining a defense marker next time he gets attacked in close combat, so could be quite useful. I'm trying it out anyway. Time will tell if it's a bad move. Okay, that completes the first activation for Kobra. We'll move on to the League of Assassins. Yes, Gustaf Gustafsson decided he'd be going first for the League, and he doesn't have Audacity, he just has the 1 action in his activation. He used that to as a tactical action to open fire with one of his 2 rounds from his carbine on Lady Eve herself. She's standing out of cover as far as he's concerned in the park there, out of the cover of night, under the cover of night now. So beyond his natural range and under the cover of night, loses 3 of his dice from the total of 6 he got, including the strength die. She took 2 hits, but using the Colt's rule, she was able to spend 1 of the faith points to transfer those hits onto this lance head here. Okay, so he takes the 2 blood as he dives in the way of the bullets on behalf of his religious leader there. Quite useful, but nonetheless it does drain 1 of the faith points from the cult, so could be pretty useful there. And just get some shooting underway. Also played as a card, we cannot be defeated as an objective for the League of Assassins for 2 points. If they're challenging themselves to have at least 3 friendly suspects in play within 6 inches of each other by the end of the turn, when this card will be checked and hopefully scored for them. Okay, so yeah, there you go. But they've already got 2 in the middle, so we'll see what happens. There's plenty of activations to go. Okay, let's move on. Next up, the Nagas activated, another guy from the park here, and he simply moved forward. He didn't have Audacity, but he was inspired, so he was able to pop down a suspect marker here. He was just about far enough away from this other one, and because it's within 6 inches of this guy, and the Naga cannot be seen by anyone, he played Can Be Anyone as an objective, from the hand for 2 points for the first actually confirmed scored card of the game. A friendly model with no enemy model can see places a suspect within 6 inches of an enemy model. So there you go, 2 points. Yes, it's kind of like the Black Ops card for Soldiers of Fortune, which we've seen before, but slightly different. But yeah, it scores 2 points, and yeah, there you go. Let's move on. Assassin 1 next. A nice, simple, straightforward turn for him as well. He just moved up from where he was next to Talia there, and popped down the suspect marker because he was very inspired by her. And yes, that will be satisfying the criteria for the 3 card, what's it called? We Cannot Be Defeated, that was played earlier in the turn. So there you go. But that obviously has to stay the case for the remainder of the turn. So lots of activations to go, but I'm not sure that the cult can really get that far in one go. Assassin 4 on top of the Star Store here. There you go, Star Store. Activated. Not quite the dynamic turn he had in mind with his Audacity counter and his grapple gun, but no, he just moved back to pick up the suspect marker that was put down. It was one of the cult's freebies, from the beginning of the game. He needed that in order to help with the great plan that the cult has played. They're trying to stop those 3 points, and that suspect marker was still within 8 inches of the corner of the board back here. So yeah, he needs to pick that up, but what else are they going to do to try and disrupt those plans? Okay, we're going with Lady Eve herself for the Kobra cult. She activated, moved out through this gate as well, and then popped down a suspect marker, which she used the last remaining faith point in her pool to use Ritual as a resource. As you can see, a friendly model placing a suspect may spend its special action, which she did, she had Audacity, to place an additional suspect and place both within 4 inches instead. So instead of putting one down next to her, which she wouldn't have been able to do because there's other suspects nearby, she popped one on top of the truck here and one just here. That will actually satisfy the criteria of the ritual that was played earlier in the turn. Obviously that relies upon nothing happening to these suspects in the meantime, which I'm sure the League will be wanting to do something about. Okay, let's move on. Assassin 2 scurried out from behind his mistress Talia there, and being inspired, he popped down another suspect. Looks like the League are maybe trying to get some collateral suspect markers out to help them with their own ongoing objectives of having several within a certain distance of each other. So yeah, that's basically his turn finished. He doesn't have anything else to do. No audacity means no attacky tackies. Lancehead 2 up next for Kobra. He, just like Gustav before, he wanted to prove that his crew has long-range firepower to spare, and so he just used his singular action in his activation to open fire on Gustav on top of the Star Store himself. Lost a couple of dice for shooting into darkness and another one for shooting beyond his comfortable range, but that's it. Still had 3 dice left over from his attack, and Gustav still hit on 2s. All hit, 1 point of blood each, deals 3 points of blood damage to the convict. That actually gave, I'm playing it so that every hit done by the cult, when a cult member attacks and hits, they get a faith point, so that actually puts 3, that means that the total amount of faith in the pool is 3 now, because there's these 2 suspect markers put down by Lady Eve herself and that hitting attack. That means they're on 3 so far, just so you know how I'm counting it. I'm not going to keep this up to date throughout the entire game, that would be ludicrous, but just give you a rough idea every now and again. Okay, right, let's carry on. Okay, a couple of activations to recount now. First of all, Carlo Grotti went, and he had such a boring action. He had no audacity here. He just moved around here into relative sort of like cover behind the building. That was basically his turn. So Kobra then moved to Hazard Trooper 1 over here. I think it's 1. Yes, it is. Hazard Trooper 1 with the machine gun. He moved up. He's only got movement 6, incidentally. He did have audacity though, so he issued the Follow Me special action to the Snake Boy at the back, the Kobra hybrid, to give it plus 4 inches movement when it next activates and moves. He then was able to use his manipulate action, his tactical action to draw a bead on assassin number 2, who activated down here. And as you can see, despite losing the strength die for shooting over his comfortable range, he did however count the model as being in plain line of sight and also in full view because of that cleverly placed lamppost dolt for me that he moved up to. And yes, so 3 dice and they all hit thanks to the red dot laser sight, allowing the Kobra guy to re-roll the 1 hit that missed. So yes, so all hits, 2 points of blood per hit, 6 points of blood altogether, and that is enough to pick up this guy as a casualty, first of the game. So there you go, not a bad activation there for the Hazard Trooper. These guys are pretty solid. Another couple of non-event turns really played out next, as both sides seem to be trying to run down each other's model count before committing to anything truly interesting, I'm sure. Tyrone Johnson here activated for the League of Assassins, moved out and popped down a suspect marker with what's his name? It's Inspiration, yes, of course. Next, Talon activated for the Kobra cult and didn't engage his back claw. He was just happy to pop along here. It's a bit of a waste of his audacity, but didn't know that at the beginning of his turn. Could put down a suspect marker, but didn't think there's much point up there. I'm not sure the Kobra cult has use for them up on their own, basically, to fit in, and there is a limited number. There's only 8 per side, so in total can be out at a time, so didn't want to waste one by leaving it up there, so if he runs down in the future it might be completely worth it up there. So yes, let's move on now back to the League of Assassins. Another couple of quiet turns to relate now. Talia al Ghul moved up and destroyed the lamppost, which had proven the downfall of one of her assassins earlier. It does leave her within nice inspiration range of several of her henchmen for next turn, perhaps. And yes, this Lancehead trooper here decided he was just going to move up to the front of the. He's actually at the edge of the fence. He has to take impaired movement to get over it next turn, but does spread the models out a little bit for the Kobra cult. Okay, let's find out what's happening next. Moves start to take a little bit more of a dashing turn as the heretic clambered through the sewer over here next to where he was, moved over to it, used his manipulate action to move through, and yes, he's appeared right behind where the Kobra cult was, where they deployed basically. Yes, it's a lot safer to do so now they've all moved, because he can't attack in the same turn that he uses a sewer. Moving on, the Kobra hybrid, who was over here, had a +4 movement counter, so able to move forward a massive 14 inches this turn, has zonked into more or less, you know, towards the middle of the board, got a lot bigger array of targets for the next turn. Okay, let's see what's happening next. Assassin number 3 activated, having been hiding patiently round behind this truck next to the audacity counter here. Yes, he'd been waiting, biding his time waiting. He zipped around the corner. Well, actually, before he did anything, at the start of his activation, multiple threats came out of the hand. A lovely 3-pointer there for the League of Assassins, if I can bring it into focus, at least anyway. So as we played at the start of the activation, so this is before he moved, basically, each of the suspect markers out gets a numeric counter. There's been a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing going on. Oh, look at that light reflection. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. There's 5 out so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 got put down on the various suspect markers. At the end of the turn, a dice will be rolled. If one of those numbers comes up, this will score 3 points. Nice. So anything but a 6, basically. We're going for anything but the best roll. The next thing he did was to move around here and pop down another suspect marker. Doesn't get its own numeric counter though, unfortunately. And yes, that is nicely within 8 inches of the corner of the board as well, so it might just help the Kobra cult it might just prevent, the Kobra cult from scoring one of its objective cards. We'll see as things go. Okay, that concludes Assassin's activation. All this done because he was carrying Audacity from the beginning of the turn as well, of course. And last for the turn, the Hazard Trooper 2 with the flamethrower went. Now, unfortunately he was a bit too far away from Lady Eve here to be inspired, so he couldn't move and reveal the suspect marker over here, nor was he able to, you know, as he didn't have Audacity, he wasn't able to move and reveal it under his own steam either, so he had one action to do, and he decided just to flamethrower, what's his name, the Heretic here, and yeah, well, it hit. It was just one dice on the template, but it hit, causing 1 point of blood, 1 point of stun, but more interestingly, the fire effect on the Heretic, which will cause him some concern in future. So yeah, that's that basically, and that concludes this turn's activations. It's been fairly eventful, lots of suspect markers down. I'm going to move to the recount phase now and tally up who scored what. Okay, a fairly impressive recount phase just happened. Okay, first things first. Every model took off 1 point of stun damage if they were carrying any. The Heretic is on fire, which means he takes a further point of blood damage and gains another fire marker. He has to sacrifice movement in his next turn to get rid of fire markers. So yeah, I'm guessing that's what he'll be doing. He has to move if he possibly can. It's like, you can't just ignore being on fire, I guess. I mean, that's only fair, even in comic books. Right, so on to cards which scored. Easier to do the Kobra cult first. So first of all, the Great Plan, played at the beginning of the turn. It's the one where they had to have suspects in the corners more than the opponent. There's still the one over there behind the Iceberg Lounge advert, but unfortunately for them, this one got picked up in the middle, and there is now a suspect marker for the League of Shadows within another corner's proximity. So yes, that Great Plan does not score because they needed to outnumber them, but yeah, well, that did force the hand of the League of Shadows somewhat, so not an entire waste, I'm afraid. The Ritual, however, does score for 3 points because there's these 4 suspect markers here, and they do neatly score for 3 points for the League, for the Kobra cult, sorry. Jeez, League, giving you exactly the wrong information there. Right, on the League of Shadows side though, multiple threats, the card relating to the dice on the suspect markers, a 5 was rolled and there was a 5 on there, so multiple threat scores for 3 points. We Cannot Be Defeated, played, does definitely score because there are multiple suspects within 6 inches of each other across the board in various places and configurations, I think. So yeah, 2 points there for them. Eradicate the Order came out from the hand of the League of Assassins because they have more suspects than the opponent in play. It's 5 for the Kobra cult and 6 for the League of Assassins, so 3 points for them there. And finally, another one from the hand for the League of Assassins, Do Not Deviate from the Plan, for 2 points. The opponent didn't reveal any of the suspect markers, so yes, none of the League of Assassins' suspect markers got picked up. So and they definitely put one down this round. So 2 points. Yes, nice. Oh, finally, in the ritual means that 2 of the suspect markers for the Kobra cult has to be taken up. So I'll be picking 2 of those up in just a moment. Finally, for the turn, yes, there were 4 points of faith left over on Lady Eve's card, on the Kobra cult's card, which means that Lady Eve takes 4 points of stun, and those faith counters are removed. So really, really got to make sure you use your faith for the turn if you possibly can, or your leader's gonna get KO'd, which is bad. Thankfully, against the League of Assassins, having stun damage isn't so bad because they mostly do blood, but against other crews this could be really bad. I did know of this going in, and I was desperately trying to find ways to spend the faith, but the cards were just not in favour, unfortunately. So but hey, back to 0 faith and starting, and we're hopefully that won't come back to bite them in the backside in turn number 2, where we're going next. Right, the take the lead and raise plan phases are complete for turn number 2, and can say that the League of Shadows played from the shadows, League of Assassins, sorry, for 2 points. We've seen this many times. They announce it now. By the end of the turn, they have to escort it. They've targeted Lancehead Soldier over here. Basically, if he is the first model to be picked up as a casualty by the League this turn, then they will score those lovely 2 points. He is right next to the Heretic, so yeah, that's a bad one for him. The initiative roll was then made, and the League of Shadows won it, so they'll be going first. And yeah, that's basically that. In the second phase, no cards were played, but audacity counters were put down. Can reveal that on the cult side, Lady Eve has audacity, as do most models over here. So the Kobra hybrid, the Kobra heavy trooper here, and hazard trooper, sorry, and Raptor up on the rooftops. Yes. For the League of Shadows, it's pretty obvious who's going to. It was Heretic was going to get one, as was Talia Al Ghul. The remaining 2 goes 1 to this assassin number 4 up here. Hopefully get some use out of his grapple gun this turn, and the assassin down here, the one with the poisoned scimitar. So yeah, okay, we're ready to start moving on to the activations for turn number 2. Wow, we've got a much more interesting second turn already, straight into the action, as the Heretic activated first for the League of Assassins, and activated his Juggernaut. Well, first of all, he played multiple threats from the hand, the same as we saw last turn. It's a lot of text, but it's the one where they put that's why there's dice all over the suspect markers for the League of Assassins again now. If any of those dice come up at the end of the turn when a die is rolled on the suspect markers, that is, this card will score for another 3 points, so heavily incentivizes the Kobra cult to remove suspect markers if they want to prevent those 3 points, but they've got to weigh that against dealing damage, of course, which is part of the fun of the game. Right, so Heretic then activated Juggernaut, which means that any hits that he gets need 2 successful blocks to stop him. He then attacked the Lancehead Soldier, who's been marked for death. What that means is that yes, lots of damage came their way. Both sides efforted to the maximum in the in Heretic's attack. Eventually did actually do 3 hits got through in total, including the strength die, doing 6 points of blood damage to the Lancehead, who is dead. However, as a resource played from the hand with the solitary 1 faith point that the Kobra cult gets from Lady Eve herself, Full Devotion was played as a resource, where if you see, when a friendly model is removed as a casualty, interrupt the activation to immediately perform a free attack action with that model. So he swung back with Religious Fervor against the Heretic, and that's why the Heretic has got an extra point of effort there and an extra 2 points of blood damage, because 1 hit got through the strength die, and yes, 2 points of blood on the Heretic. So the Heretic has taken a bit of damage, but he did dive bomb into the middle of the enemy crew, so it's to be expected. There's got to be some pain for the game. Yes, so there you go. Having killed the Lancehead Soldier, that will satisfy from the shadows late at the end of the turn when we check for scoring. Just thought I'd show you that there. And yeah, not a bad start to the turn. A model dead, a bunch of points, and a whole bunch of damage too. In retaliation for the loss of the Lancehead soldier, the Naga activated, and he didn't have audacity, so he drew his pistol and shot at the heretic. I'm not counting cover for a piece of scenery that he's right up against, so yep, there you go. So no cover, did 2 hits, 1 point of blood, 1 point of stun each, including the strength die. So yeah, that's 2 more blood, 2 more stun. That's the heretic is piling up the damage. He's got a lot on his profile. He doesn't go unconscious like most models would do when they get to their stun limit. They'll just get added onto his more blood damage. But yeah, he has accrued a healthy amount, but nonetheless not enough to put him down at the moment, but it was sufficient for sacrifice to be played from the hand for 2 points for the Kobra Cult. A friendly model within 4 inches of a friendly suspect inflicts at least 1 blood damage, and yeah, he's right next to 1 in fact. So yeah, easy score there for the Kobra Cult, and helps them get through their deck a bit more. Another faith point too. Right, Assassin 1, originally over by these boxes over here, activated next. He had audacity for 2 points of resource from the shadows was played. At the start of a friendly model activation with a henchman rank, you can use its movement action to replace it within 4 inches of a friendly suspect, then remove that suspect. Well, the suspect, which had been moved via scheming, incidentally, from Talia into the park here, was picked up, and the assassin was put into combat with the Naga here, who he then attacked with his normal action, his tactical action, shall I say. Both sides efforted to the maximum, nullified all the attack dice out, but the strength die came up to 6 after its sharp reroll, which allowed it to do 3 points of damage and poison to the Naga. So yes, the first poison of the day goes to the League of Assassins. It's usually the cult's party piece, but well, there you go. Yes, so there you go, that resource was played, and we're going to carry on with the turn now. Raptor activated for the Kobra Cult next, and he activated his back claw from up here to swoop down. He then used his manipulate action to remove this suspect marker with a reveal action. However, unfortunately for him, the final 2 resource points used by the League of Assassins do not deviate from the plan. To prevent that from happening, as an enemy will try to reveal one of your suspects, cancel the action. Simple. So that activation comes to naught for him. So he's just swooped down and been haha, and then slipped on his ass. Nice. Okay, right, let's move on and see what the League of Assassins is going to do. Now he's exposed himself in the middle of the board. Ugh. Assassin 4 for the League activated, and he used his grapple gun to go all the way from up here down to here. It's quite a prodigious movement. He was just able to get into hitting range with his boot due to the fact that his weapon's got reach because it's so long, and yes, that's the only reason he was able to attack the Naga in this turn. The Naga's put 2 maining effort in that he could again, and the assassin matched it. He rather probably wishes that he put a bit more in now, because he could have put 3 in but chose not to. Didn't think he'd need it. Hubris, I suppose, because yeah, the attack fluffed, unfortunately for him, even though, I mean, the Nagas I don't think counts as being outnumbered, because he's not in base contact with multiple enemy models. Despite being attacked by this one and already being in contact with this one, he's not in base contact, so didn't count as outnumbered, I don't think. I ran the numbers. Even if he had done, the attack would still have failed. No hits got through, and the strength die whiffed as well, despite the fact with the reroll for being sharp. So yeah, that's that. No points scored, just the 2 points of effort to mark the passing, and another assassin suddenly materialising next to Lady Eve. The idea of the League of Assassins, I think, is that they're just trying to make it so that Lady Eve suddenly finds herself bereft of bodyguards, and in the middle of some very angry assassins, but hasn't quite worked out for them yet, but Lady Eve's still in a fairly precarious position. But let's carry on the turn. It's not exactly what he wanted to do for this turn, but the Kobra hybrid moved around from behind the I don't know what the fencing sort of thing here, and put the barrier, that's what I was looking for, barrier, and picked up the suspect marker that Raptor tried to do before, and there was no resource points left to stop him this time for the League, and that enabled them to play Sabotage from the Kobra Cult's hand. Oh, focus in please. Reveal an enemy suspect. There are no enemy suspects within 4 inches of the edges of the gaming area. There are not. All of the League of Assassins ones are kind of clustered in the middle, which kind of suits them for for scoring purposes, but unforeseen to them did not stop the sabotage here from the Colt. Okay, 2 points for the Kobra Colt there, and yeah, but nonetheless, the hybrid would nonetheless be much happier munching on people, but was not to be. Need to score those points. Talia Al Ghul up for the League of Assassins. She moved around the corner with audacity and used her tactical action to attempt to slice up the Kobra hybrid. Her twin scimitars are pretty dangerous. Both sides efforted as much as they could, and 3 hits got through on the scaly guy. Unfortunately, not enough to kill him. The strength die didn't work. She needed 5s, but with a reroll, and it just didn't come up for her. Unfortunately, if it had, he'd have been dead. But yeah, the overwhelming ability of her attacks, -1 for him to block, does actually meant that he didn't block as much as he could have done. And yeah, that's 3 hits on him. So he's hurting quite a lot there. Okay, let's move on. The lance head up here decided he's going to continue what he did last turn. He didn't have audacity because, well, he's not getting it anytime soon, probably, the way the model game's going. And he used his final piece of ammunition to fire on Gustav Gustafsson up here. Lost a bunch of dice, but the carbine has so many, it was still sufficient for 2 hits to get through. He's only defense 2 up here, and that's 2 points of blood. It's just enough to take him out of action. He's gone. And yeah, so that kills him. That's an extra point of faith for the Colt of Kobra there from him, but yeah, there's no cards tying into that, unfortunately. It's just there to get him before he opened fire, because he has quite a few targets around and about, and yeah. Okay, let's see what goes on next. Okay, I did a couple of models turns, mainly because this first one was fairly uneventful. This assassin jumped over the fence into contact with the hazard trooper, you can see there, just to stop him from being able to use his flamethrower this turn because he has to move and there to be out of base contact to do so, by which time he'll have run out of abilities to put down any, to put down the flame, because he hasn't got audacity. So there you go. Having done that, activated Lady Eve here. She, first of all, let's recount what happened. First of all, she was over here, she had audacity, and I'll just pick that up now, there we go. She, first of all, a resource came out of the hand. She had 3 faith points at the moment, did the Colt. The Great Plan as a resource. For 1 resource, what he does is, she has the Void Priest trait, so she can put down a Cobra Swarm within 4 inches. She put it down in contact with the Heretic just here. Then empowered it by 2, which means spend 2 more faith points. So there was all 3 of the faith points gone. Immediately perform an attack action with the Cobra Swarm. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, yeah? The Cobra Swarm attacked the Heretic. It's got such pathetic stats, it didn't do any damage at all, but it didn't hit anyway, sorry. But it has the Caustic rule on its Poison Fangs, which means it always scores always does a point of blood damage, even if it fails. So yes, that means that not only does the point of damage go on, but the poison effect goes on to the Heretic as well. So that kind of sucks for him, or sucked for him, shall we say, because Lady Eve then decided to actually have her activation. She moved into contact with him and attacked him with the Cobra Blade, I think is what it's called. And yes, she didn't put any effort in. He had no effort limit left to give, and she did 2 hits through after all was said and done. And yes, that was sufficient to take him over his endurance limit and remove him from the board. Having done that, Awakening was played from the hand of the Kobra Colt as an objective. 2 points. An enemy model within 8 inches of a friendly model is removed as a casualty while suffering the poison effect, and he already was, just from being poisoned by the Cobras. So good little bit of tandem work there from Lady Eve and the Cobra Swarm there. So yes, and that removes the Heretic from the game. Nasty. And 2 points, not bad. Couple more activations because they're getting a bit short now. Tyrone moved up and he moved up from here and put down a suspect marker because he was within inspire range of Talia Al Ghul when he started his turn. Following that, this lance head here, the one with the knife, he moved back from his position here to be in base contact in turn with this guy, this assassin, because yeah, it just seems to make sense. It also brings another model to within 4 inches of what's her face here? Lady Eve, blimey, come on Lee, I know these characters, I've read comics with them in and everything, and yes, so she can use him as an ablative shield if she needs to. Nice stuff. Okay, let's carry on, back to the League of Assassins. Carlo Grotti, the prisoner, activated next. I think is the last activation for the League this turn. He moved out of cover and fired his automatic gun at the Kobra hybrid. He lost a couple of dice from moving and shooting. Nonetheless, both the remaining hits got through for 2 points of blood and 2 points of stun on the big scaly beast. Oh, it should only be 1 point of stun actually. It doesn't matter because the monster's big, you see, so it takes 1 less point of stun. The 2 points of blood, however, enough to kill the monster. The Kobra hybrid, shall I say. Yes, bit of a shame for him. Where's his card? There it is, okay. And he's gone. Yes, didn't tie into any cards, but does cut down on the number of models on the board, which is what the League wants. Hazard Trooper here with the flamethrower activated, just going through the Kobra Colt's actions now really. He didn't have audacity, used his one action as a tactical action to thwonk the assassin in close combat with him. He doesn't have any close combat weapons, but nonetheless the assassin is outnumbered because the lance head decided to move into base contact with him. Didn't put any effort in, the defender there. Sorry, the assassin didn't put any effort in, let me say that properly. And the Hazard Trooper capitalised on that by putting maximum in, gave him enough oomph to get 4 points of stun through, which is enough to knock out the assassin, interestingly enough. That made 3 faith points in the pool for the Colt. They managed to play new followers as a resource. I'll just show you the text. For 3 faith, for 1 faith they get a rest. He couldn't use a rest, would have been really useful, but it didn't have the spare action to do so. Didn't have a special action, can't use a rest. But nonetheless, empowered it by 2 to use up the faith pool to move the Hazard Trooper 4 inches, which puts him nicely. Puts him nicely here next to his leader, so she can use him as a bullet shield as well. But yeah, so there you go, not a bad turn, and yes, desperately trying not to have any faith points left over in the kitty at the end, so as to prevent any excess damage going on to her. Right, let's wrap things up. And finally, Hazard Trooper number 1 over here. He activated, he was just a bit back here. Whilst he used his special action to use Follow Me on this lance head over here, give him that much needed bit of speed perhaps to get him back into the game. Now he's run out of ammunition. He then activated his, his attached grenade launcher to his machine gun. And yes, he activated it, he fired into the explosive round in between these 2 prisoners here, but it was with the firearm rule, it was an easy 2+ to wound both, 1 point of blood, 1 point of stun on each. Most importantly of all though, he played Awakening as a resource. Since it hit, he got a point of faith and used it immediately to use this card. So when performing an attack, it also applies the poison effect. It doesn't say to be played at the beginning of the attack, so I'm taking it as it can be played now because it's just hit, gets the faith, boom, done. So yes, that's both of those guys are poisoned as well, so it must have been a poisoned gas grenade round or something, I suppose. But yeah, quite interesting, and burns through that last point of faith, I guess, so as not to cause damage to the leader for the end of the turn, which is what we're going to be going into now. We're going to go into the recount phase, and we'll total up what's happening and who's scoring which cards, etc. Okay, recount phase complete, and yes, the League really did kick up a bit of a score here in this last phase. From the Shadows scored for them because they predictably killed the model they narked for death for 2 points. Multiple threats also came off for them again. There was a 2/3 chance of it doing so, and yet 3 more points. They rolled a 4 and the 4 marker was still out there. Oh well. And finally, Eradicate the Order came out of their hand again, and they still have more suspect markers than the Kobra Colt on the board, so 3 easy points again for them. So a cool 8 points for them at the end. Although Kobra have been scoring throughout the course of the turn, I think they've been outscoring the League of Assassins throughout the turn as well. So I'm guessing it's just for different ways the different crews accrue their points at timings and whatnot. Each model took off 1 point of, stun. Yes, absolutely. And yes, what was I going to say? Oh yes, this assassin automatically recovers from being KO'd because of his mind-altering substances or something that Talia feeds her henchmen, so immediately automatically recovers from knockdown, so he's back up and back in the game. Oh, just some poison rolls to make. Let's do those now, so let's roll live, shall we? Okay, let's do the Naga, who's over here. He's got 1 point, so 3 dice, pick the 2 highest. Oh, he fails, so he takes another point of blood. We'll do Carlo Grotti up here. He passes, I think. It's an endurance test, and he's on 5, so yes, he passes, chooses the 4 and the 1. And Tyrone, he fails, unfortunately for him. He's on 4 for his endurance, and that will fail no matter which 2 dice he picks. So, okay, an extra point of blood, for each of those models that I said failed. Now let's move on to turn number 3. Well then, here we are, turn 3, and I've just completed the take the lead and raise the plan phases. No cards played by either crew in either of the phases actually this turn, so relatively simple start. Just enough to reveal that the Kobra Cult here in blue won the initiative roll, so they'll be going first. And yes, the in terms of who got audacity, you can see for the Kobra Cult it's Lady Eve herself, the Hazard Trooper next to her, the one with the flamethrower. We're going with the Hazard Trooper over here as well. He's doing pretty well with his submachine gun, so let's keep that going. And Raptor, of course. For the League of Assassins, you can see that Talia has audacity there, and then it's the bunch of assassins over here. So this guy here, the one with the long-handled bouge, and the guy who's knocked down and recently woken up. He's got things to do maybe, so he needs to get up and do them. Okay, let's get back on with some activations. Okay, well, the Kobra Cult kicked off with Naga there, the guy who's kind of lucky and surprised that he's alive, to be perfectly honest, surrounded as he is by assassins, but he's quite a tough guy. He's on the, what's the word, he's in the 36 reputation category for henchmen, so yeah, he shouldn't go down too quickly, but nonetheless, being surrounded by blood-causing assassins, then he's quite surprised to see him still here. Anyway, he went, and he doesn't have audacity, so quite a surprising pick for first go, but he decided he was going to do a melee attack on the assassin in close combat with him. He's actually got a pretty impressive attack stat of 4, which is really good for a henchman, and as we sort of found out. And yes, the assassin's taking damage from earlier. He himself is carrying some, so neither side efforted at all to see how things went out. But their 2 hits got through, and that was sufficient to do 2 points of stun, which knocked out the assassin. These assassins only have 4 willpower each anyway, so not the hardest job to take them out. This prompted new followers to be played from the hand of the cult. So 2 points of 2 victory points, sorry, should I say, played now. An enemy model suffers KO within 4 inches of any of your suspects, then remove one of these suspects. So it'll be that one he's next to, so just bear with me while I pick it up. Whoopsie. There you go. And then as he's inspired, he still gets his freebie manipulate action, so he's actually going to pop it back down again. So there you go. Interestingly enough, that puts the cult now on 3 points of faith in their pool, just so you know. They had 1 from Lady Eve at the beginning of the turn, and well, when the Naga hit, that was another one, and putting another suspect down within 8 inches of Lady Eve gave him a 3rd. So there you go, just so you know. Right, that's that. 2 points scored for the Kobra Cult. Let's move on to the League of Assassins. Okay, a bit of an odd turn for Assassin 4, as you're about to find out. He activated, and first thing he did was he was still in range to hit the Naga here, and he did so. He managed, the very wounded Naga didn't stand up to the strength die that got through. It was the only die that did so, and yes, so the Naga is now dead and removed. I'm just going to pick him up. There we go. That scored 2 points because the League of Assassins played Blood for Blood, which scores in the 3rd phase, which is what we're in. Inflict a casualty in melee 6 inches away from any of your suspects with a model with the assassin trait, and there are no League of Assassins suspect markers around here. So there you go. That scores 2 points for the League. Interestingly, though, the reaction that happened as a result of that, for the cost of 1 faith point, Full Devotion came out again. I think we hit that earlier. Just bring that into focus. When a friendly model is removed as a casualty, interrupt the activation to immediately perform a free attack action with that model. So the Naga did so. He drew his pistol. He wasn't in base contact, so he couldn't use his melee strike. Not that he wanted to necessarily, but he used his remaining point of ammunition to shoot at the dude here, and yes, he got 3 hits altogether, 3 points of stun, 3 points of blood, which I haven't got on the board, but yes, that was enough to knock out the guy here as well, the assassin. So yes, that concludes, I guess, the assassin's activation, because he can't use his movement or special actions now. And yeah, so there you go, both sides. And then of course, just to top it all off, still in the assassin's turn, the sacrifice card came out for the cult of Kobra for 2 points. A friendly model within 4 inches of a friendly suspect inflicts at least 1 point of blood damage, which he just did. So yes, scored in the enemy's turn as a reaction. It's like playing bloody Joker. Oh well, let's get back on with it. Right, Raptor next for the Colt, and he had a fairly interesting turn. First of all, he was in base contact with Tyrone over here, and he had audacity, used his tactical action to attack Tyrone. Both sides efforted to the maximum, as you can see from the crude stun damage there, and it was sufficient for only the strength die, unfortunately, to get through, because Tyrone managed to ace every single one of his defense rolls, knocking out all the incoming attacks. So that was it was sufficient to have a knockout Tyrone, who's taken way enough stun damage to qualify for that, but he wasn't dead, and as a henchman in Talia's gang, he'll automatically recover from that. Almost knowing that, what happened was that as a resource, New Followers was played for 1 of the faith points. The friendly active model gains the arrest trait until the end of its activation. So yes, that's what he did. Still had his special action, did Raptor, so he used his special action to arrest. I guess it's just put the boot in this guy, which removes him as a casualty, and thus still allowing him to score Awakening for 2 points, whereby an enemy model within 8 inches of a friendly model is removed as a casualty while suffering the poison effect. And if you remember, Tyrone was poisoned from last turn. So yes, it was a bit of a roundabout way to do it, but 2 points is scored by this card. And then finally Raptor managed to jink around here with his movement action that he still had, just to get out of line of sight of Carlo there. He wasn't going to get out of range probably of any vengeance from Talia, if that's what she wants to do, so he figured he'd just get out of line of sight so that Carlo would at least have to move to draw a bead on him. Okay, that completes the Colt's turn. Let's get on with the League of Assassins. The eventful game of Assassin number 3 continues. He was the guy who was originally sneaking around behind the truck, moved along the fence and jumped in, did some stuff, got knocked out. Now he's here. He jumped up, having automatically recovered from knockout last turn, and despite taking reduced movement from doing so, he had audacity, so he moved over into this cover here and popped down a suspect marker. Now it allowed him to score under their noses for 2 points. It's a nice easy one. Place a suspect marker within 4 inches of an enemy suspect marker. Very simple. Now I do know that a lot of people use this card for its resource, which is very good, and there's a lot of text on there, so I'll just give you a thing. It lets you pick up a suspect marker, including the one that you just put down, and replace it with a smoke template. The explosive template can be quite large. That's really useful. Smoke in this particular, in the game as it stands, smoke is incredibly broken is what I'll say. It basically takes models out of the entire turn for the turn, and whilst the smoke cloud's still there, which is just absolutely rank. I mean, he could potentially have moved here, put down a smoke marker, and just ended this entire cluster of models' games, turns. It's actually a quarter of the game they'd be taken out of, which is just ridiculous, really. It means it stops you from moving. You can't do any attacks or defense. It's just silly, and I just think it's in dire need of a revision. I strongly suspect it will be, and I don't think it's representative as to how the game's meant to be, played at the moment. I think it's still, the smoke rules are still a bit of a holdover from 2nd edition, where they maybe weren't quite so powerful in a 6-turn game as opposed to a 4-turner. But yeah, and just for me, if I was playing against someone, then by all means, if I was trying to play as competitively as possible, for a fun game, obviously, but I would definitely use the smoke rule. But when I'm playing against myself, in this solo, battle report environment, for the purpose of making a good video, I'm just trying not to do so, and it does score 2 points anyway, so that's still very, very relevant for the end of the game, and who knows how relevant it will be by then. But I'm just saying, I am aware that this smoke rule exists, and it is very good, and I know people have told, I've caught people saying things about it before, that maybe I'm not using it to its best thing. That's why I know it's there. I just think it's rather too powerful and needs a revision, and for the purposes of a solo battle report, I'm not going to be doing it, okay? Or unless I find, unless I really, really think it's fits into the narrative, okay? Sorry about that for the slight rant, everyone. But yes, let's carry on. 2 points in the bag for League of Assassins, and more henchmen scoring. Hazard Trooper number 1, the guy with the submachine gun activated, and yeah, he's had a pretty good game, hasn't he? He had Audacity, so he moved up to this part of the board here. He then before he opened fire, as a resource from the hand, Sabotage came out, which was used 3 faith points to empower it. So just go here, remove the poison effect from an enemy model within 4 inches of the active friendly model. And the active model, that's the Hazard Trooper there, gains 2 attack or 2 defense markers. He opted to go with 2 defense markers, so Carlo Grotti's poison marker was removed in exchange for 2 defense markers, which he thinks he might need if Talia al Ghul decides to try and chop him up for some maybe easy victory points at some point or something. But yes, the Empower 2 effect means another enemy model within 8 inches of the active friendly model gains the poison effect, and yes, so Talia gets the poison for funsies as well. Having done that, he then used his tactical action to use his submachine gun to shoot at Carlo here, doing 6 points of damage. In fact, everything hit apart from the strength die on 2s. He's got an assault weapon, incidentally, that's why he didn't lose any dice. And yeah, so that'll kill Carlo there. Nasty. So yeah, that's that. Another model down for the league. In fact, both sides are starting to lose models quite quickly. So yeah, but the things are starting to tidy up nicely, I suppose. Anyway, that concludes his turn. No caster score as a result of that, but yes, another model down, like I said. Okay, it turns out Talia al Ghul is the last model able to activate for the League of Assassins this turn. Too many of her henchmen have been knocked unconscious, unfortunately. Yeah, but so she activated with Audacity. She moved around the corner into base contact with Raptor, as you can see there, and laid about him with her twin scimitars. Yeah, he put in 2 points of effort because that was the maximum he could do from now on. She put in the 3, why not, in for a penny and all that. And yes, it was sufficient to kill him. She got a good round of hits in her. The overwhelming ability on her scimitars meant he only managed to block 1 of them, and yeah, she even got the strength die through. So pretty gross. Takes 8 points of blood damage, does Raptor, and that is enough to pick him up. I'm afraid, not being the greatest showcase for this guy. I'm sure he does have some good qualities, but I need to get more used to how he operates, I think. Yes, so that allowed Talia to play Lazarus Pit for 2 points as an objective. Inflict a casualty or a KO in melee more than 8 inches away from any other enemy model. And he's moved around here, and this guy didn't move up close enough, so they didn't know that was coming though. So hey, but yeah, 2 points there for Talia. So despite actually losing models, surrendering board control, etc., the league is still scoring cards, and I'm pretty sure they had a lead from earlier, so we'll see how that goes into the next turn. But before the next turn, let's carry on moving around the remaining Kobra Cult models and see if they can pick up any points due to the absence of league activations. Okay, just running along with the Kobra Cult, activations now. Started with this Lancehead Trooper here. He just moved. He was inspired by the presence of Lady Eve. He just moved up and picked up the suspect marker that the assassin had put down, just to make sure there was no shenanigans to come from that. He's finished his turn in base contact with him. Couldn't attack because he doesn't have Audacity, but yeah, it's quite a useful thing to do nonetheless, I hope. Next thing up, we moved this Hazard Trooper. He used his last point of ammunition while standing next to Lady Eve, where his Audacity marker was, to flamethrower the 2 unconscious assassins on the board, basically hitting on 2s, I think it was, because of their knocked out and unconscious state. This one actually took a hit, got set fire and a point of blood and stun. Actually rolled a 1 for Assassin 4, but because of the caustic rule, still managed to do 1 point of blood to him, which is what happens if you fail the strength roll. And yes, that 1 point of blood was enough to kill the assassin, because he was carrying 3 from earlier in the turn. So actually, despite failing to hurt it, to roll the dice to damage him, still killed him. So there you go. No card score, but yes, it's still more whittling down of the crew here for the League of Assassins. They're really getting the screw turned on them by the cult. Then the Hazard Trooper, managed to move up just there to finish off his turn. Nothing else he can do. And yes, so I'm going to carry on with some more moves just to finish off the Kobra Cult's turn. And yeah, that finishes it all up. Just quickly first, this Lancehead Trooper right up here, he just moved forward. Don't forget he had the benefit of plus 4 inches movement this turn from Follow Me from earlier, and yeah, so he's managed to jet up the board into a bit more of a useful position perhaps for next turn. Next thing up, the Snake marker here, the Cobra Swarm, sorry, moved into contact with this assassin here, who's now outnumbered because there's 2 models in base contact with him now. And finally, Lady Eve moved around from her Audacity marker there into behind the, well, into this part, this area here behind the truck as regards this assassin, enabling her to play Can Be Anyone when she put down this suspect marker. So 2 victory points, I think we saw it before. A friendly model, no enemy model can draw line of sight. 2 places a suspect within 6 inches of an enemy model, and yep, that qualifies because he's there, he can't see her, and Talia Al Ghul cannot see her either because of the cover of night. So there you go. That is 2 points scored for the Cobra cult. Not a bad turn for them. Right, let's move to the recount phase and see who's putting any more points out on the board. Okay, recount phase for turn 3 now complete. Every model has taken some stun damage removes a point, including this guy down here who was knocked out. He recovers from knockout automatically, but he's still on fire, so he takes a further flame marker and a point of blood for his trouble. He's still alive though, so he'll be activating next turn, assuming nothing nasty happens to him. In terms of cards played, Eradicate the Order came out again for the League of Assassins for 3 victory points. They still have more suspects than their opponents in play, only by 1, but still enough. That early board control with suspect markers really did pay off for them over the course of the game. And yeah, so I think that concludes that. No cards played by the cult this turn, not in the last phase, but they have a huge supremacy in number of models. Can they convert that into points? Well, let's find out. Right, into the last turn. First 2 phases complete, take the lead and raise the plan respectively. Okay, neither side played any cards in the first phase, but the League of Assassins well and truly easily won the initiative roll this turn, so they'll be going first for this last turn. In the second phase, 2 cards came out for the Cobra cult. The Great Plan, we saw that before in the first turn, I think, for 3 points, so possibly quite pivotal. Scores at the end of the turn if there are more friendly suspects than enemy suspects within 8 inches of the corners of the gaming area. So yeah, they need to keep those suspect markers in the corners and stop the League of Assassins from doing the same. And secondly, Ritual came out. We've seen that one as well. 3 points again, scores at the end if so basically they need 4 suspect markers within 6 inches of each other, sorry, and then when they score it they remove 2 of them, but it's the last turn, so if that happens they'll be quite happy to sacrifice it for 3 victory points. Okay, that concludes that. There's nothing else. Everyone sort of like, yes, Talia Al Ghul tried to use her manipulate ability to influence who was going, wasn't having any of it, so yeah, it's all going on. She's also used her scheming rule, sorry, just to move some suspects around, and yes, we're going to go on and see who can scrabble out those last few points or casualties. Assassin number 1 stepped up for the first activation. He was knocked down and on fire, so he stood up and put himself out, quite sensibly enough. He was next to a suspect marker, which he then used his manipulate action to reveal. Oh, he had Audacity, incidentally, and also in his turn, We Cannot Be Defeated was played as an objective from the hand for 2 victory points. At the end of the turn, if the league has 3 suspects in play within 6 inches of each other, which they have several over here, that will count towards them scoring those 2 points. So the league's still hitting off those scoring cards at this late stage in the game. The Cobra Swarm activated for Kobra and has no Audacity, just sufficed its needs to bite the assassin here. Actually put a couple of effort in, the assassin didn't feel the need to, and yes, every single die roll was nicely countered. Even the strength die didn't hit, but because it's caustic, does 1 point of blood and therefore poisons the assassin because he took damage from the attack. And so this assassin is poisoned, and we'll see if that factors into anything. Plenty of activations to go around though on the Cobra side, so they can afford to do some of these, maybe less consequential ones to tease out what the League of Assassins is going to do, because although the League could pass, it would probably just be a mistake at this stage. Everything's a little bit too intermingled. The assassin who recently got bitten by the snake decided he would better go next before any other models came in to try and finish him off before he got to activate. He moved to this place over here in the corner and put down a suspect marker, clearly trying to prevent the great plan from scoring for the Kobra cult, which would be a good thing for him if he managed to do that. Yeah, because I think it's what he did at the beginning of the game as well. So yes, he's certainly keeping his eye on the prize. Yes, that does finish his turn, unfortunately for him, but he might just have stopped that one from scoring. That's 3 points. It's going to be hard for the Kobra cult to be able to get any models over to put more suspects down in the corners of the board that they're allowed to do so. Okay, let's carry on. This last head trooper, realising that he was too far away from the assassin and the suspect mark over here to make any difference, unfortunately for him, went over here and popped down a suspect marker. He's too far away from Lady Eve for it to count towards giving faith points, which is kind of beneficial. She took 3 points of stun damage at the end of last turn, incidentally. I forgot to mention that, from the unused faith. So yeah, she's kind of teetering on the edge of consciousness at the moment. But yeah, nonetheless, he popped this one down, obviously trying to set up the ritual or something, because it's quite close to this suspect here. But yes, on to I think it's Talia's go. She's the last activating model for the League this game. And yes, the leader of Leviathan herself activated. She moved over, she had audacity, and she's going to reveal this suspect marker. So if we pick that up now, there we go, it's gone. And by doing so, she's going to play The Fire Rises for 2 points. For reveal an enemy suspect within 6 inches of your boss. Well, she is the boss, so that's very much counts. 2 victory points again for the League of Assassins. Yes, even right to the last, they're scoring points. Now it's just over to the Kobra cult to see what they can do for the remainder of the turn, see if there's any cards that they can pick up or score. Right, just to cut a long story short, because obviously we're going on for time, I'm sure. Well, so basically the remaining models around here, so including Lady Eve, who moved around from the truck, and this Hazard Trooper, set up the ritual quite nicely now that there was no League of Assassins activations left to stop them. And yeah, so each of these suspect markers are within 6 inches of each other, so that will probably score the 3 points at the end of the turn. Next up was the Hazard Trooper, who used his follow me trait on the Lance Head, who's actually zipped up here. And I'm just about to show you something kind of cool, probably. For, what's it, 3 of the 4 faith points which have been accrued, she's going to use the strict control which is a resource to place a Kobra hybrid model within 2 inches of an active friendly model. Well, we're doing this in Lance Head's turn, so let's go around there, okay, and see how things go. Sorry, begging pardon for show you this edge of the board for the first time. What an amazing camera angles I've chosen today because of all the buildings I put around the outside. I'm so smart. Oh well, that's how we learn. Okay, so we put down the so here we go. We put down the Kobra hybrid within 2 inches of the active friendly model. I don't know. So here's the Kobra hybrid. He died earlier, but he's back now. So here he is. Then remove the active model from the game. Well, okay, so he's turned into the Kobra hybrid. I'm pretty sure is a strict implication of that one. The Kobra hybrid is immediately activated and may perform 2 actions. Okay, so the Kobra hybrid is going to go here and put down a suspect marker. Nice. Okay, so that's that. That's within 8 inches of this corner. So yes, that will probably help for the great plan card as well. And then it says then remove the Kobra hybrid as a casualty. So yeah, obviously a bit of an unstable mutation, that one, but hey, last turn of the game and a nice expendable Lance Head to get rid of. Okay, so yes, and that one's down. If she'd had 5 more faith points in the kitty, which is something of an ask, Lady Eve could actually have kept the Kobra hybrid. Pointless at this stage of the game anyway, to be honest, but is quite nice and thematic. You need a lot of faith though to use it. Okay, that basically completes the game as far as I'm aware. There's no models left to activate. Everyone's been and gone. Right, let's go to the recount phase and just see who's going to be doing the last, who scored what cards. Right, so starting with the League of Assassins, We Cannot Be Defeated was played during this turn for 2 points, and they did succeed. You have at least 3 friendly suspects in play that are within 6 inches of each other, despite the Hazard Trooper taking one up. There are several here with proximity, so that's 2 points for them. They've really cashed in on their board control from early in the game. Yes, knowing the deck is very useful for the League. It's allowed them to jet around and do other things as well. Right, so for the Kobra Cult, the Ritual does score for 3 points. Because that's certainly satisfied. I could pick up 2 of those, but it's basically pointless at this stage. It's the last turn. And yes, the Great Plan also scores, because that one suspect which we thought was going to put a spanner in the works was counteracted by the 2 suspects which are round the back of the HFC over there. So that is a lovely 3 points for the Kobra Cult. Okay, yes, so the Kobra Cult for this turn have actually had the lion's share of the end of game points. There's no other cards coming out of the hands. Funnily enough, the League of Assassins almost scored Daughter of the Demon, Talia's card, which I've never seen scored before because it's a difficult one. Scores in this phase and played in this phase have more friendly suspects within 4 inches of enemy models in play. So yeah, and the Hazard Trooper obligingly moved into the middle of this little cluster here. Nearly scored it for them, but there are actually at least 5 enemy models in play. So yeah, never mind that, didn't score. Right, let's go to the final count and see who's won. I can't quite work it out. Lots of cards scored for the League, but yes, the Cult has also been chipping them away quite regularly too, so let's see. Right, well, here we go, ready for the final count with the Cult of the Cobras cards in my hand. So let's see which ones they scored. So 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 22, 25 points scored. Okay, that's a pretty tidy sum. Certainly, yeah, pretty good. Let's see what the League of Assassins managed to get. So 25 to beat, 2, 5, 7, 10, 13, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 27, 29 and 31. 31 is a tidy sum indeed, yes. And it's a sound win really for the League of Assassins, shall I say. I think their game plan pretty much worked out well. Put out a load of suspect markers at the back and then infiltrate with as many fast moving assassins and the heretic coming up through the sewer to disrupt the cult as much as they possibly can, I think. It allowed them to really dominate with their superior ability to score points off of their existing suspect markers, which they did. Which the card is We Cannot Be Defeated scores really easily for them, as well as multiple threats as soon as they had a whole load of those down, and Eradicate the Order as well, the one where they scored just through having more suspects out than the opponent. Bit of a tall order actually against the Kobra Cult because they have so many models as well, but it was very possible for them given this particular setup of their crew. Lots of models on both sides. I'm quite happy with how that went, to be honest. Thoughts on the Cult? Yeah, I need to really, if I want to be competitive with them and give them if I'd known how to use them, or if I was more familiar with their deck, then I would have given them a better fist of it, to be perfectly honest. Bit more used to what the models can and can't do. Perhaps if I'd actually taken the actual proper boss of their crew, he's got Batman-esque stats, so would have been a lot more threat on the board. But quite happy with how the faith points work. You've really got to get used to trying to use them up in order to avoid taking significant amounts of stun damage on your leader. Like I said, against some crews that would be really horrific. Against a Batman crew, taking lots of stun on your leader for basically nothing is a bit of a handicap, I must say. But yeah, could lead to some horrific results later down the line, getting arrested, etc. But never mind that for today. That's familiarity will be the key to getting the most out of this deck. But overall, yes, I'm pretty happy with how they played. I scored 25 points is not a bad score either. It could easily have beaten some other crews I've used and other scores I've had on this channel. I hope you all enjoyed this. The Cult is an interesting one. I look forward to seeing what other cults turn up to share this deck, and or share bits of this deck at least. And yeah, I hope, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. If you leave me some comments, if there's anything you saw that I got wrong or anything you particularly liked, it's always good. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. I will definitely be using this crew again at some point, but I've got a whole heap more to come. Trust me, I've just taken delivery of some. It'll be a bit of a surprise as they come out, I'm sure. And yes, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the decks are all coming out, so huge amounts more variety. Hurrah, that's what we like. And yes, as lockdown, the end of lockdown approaches, I'll be getting some opponents in as well. That'll be fun. Okay, I'm Shield War 100, and I'll see you next time.